Have you ever had a job without a job description? Well, guess what? If you are named as a trustee, successor trustee, or have a power of attorney of a parent or somebody in your life, you may very well have a job, an expectation, if you will, an obligation, but you may not understand what the commitment really is all about. Join us on Consider This program today. We'll talk you through a little bit of what you're up for. Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Jamie Burton.
Hey, Jamie, there are a lot of things that we have done living in the farm world of our lives.
Yes.
And your dad owning a pizza place for a while. I'm sure you worked at the shop.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have you been given jobs without a job description?
Handful.
Probably would even say that I've done that to you, wouldn't I? That's not fair. We're not supposed to, be picking on me. But there is a reason we have a chief operating officer to make sure that we have those job descriptions that are done.
Yep.
It is not all of us are designed to be managers, right?
That's very true.
And so what happens is we find people in life who we trust or we like, or we believe they have an implied responsibility. Right. So many times it's our kids, right? Mm-hmm. And we go to the attorney, or we get a will put together, or we get a trust put together, and inside of that trust, they ask who your successor trustee is going to be. And in most of the trusts that I see, the kids are the ones that are named.
Yes.
Right. Now, what do you suppose? Well, let's just start here. And when I say a revocable trust or a will, they work hand in hand together. One goes through probate. Will always go through probate. A revocable trust does not go through probate. And remember, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV or radio. I've just done this for a long time and work with a lot of good estate planning attorneys, right? So a will go through probate. That's how it functions. And that's where you're typically going to see the power of attorney document that is attached to that. Inside of a trust, you're going to have a successor trustee and trustees that control that. So how would you describe a revocable trust?
Yeah, so a revocable trust is one that you create while you're living, and you can put money into it, you can take money out of it. It's not something that you set up and it has to be the same. You can't make any changes. With a revocable trust, you can always make changes, and then once you pass away, that's when it becomes the irrevocable trust.
Or when you become incapacitated. Do
Yes.
not forget that.
Yeah.
When the successor trustees kick in, it becomes irrevocable. It's just taxed in a different way, right? So it's kind of the journey, if you will, with the trust. But good explanation of that. So how do assets get inside of the trust?
You have to it's called funding the trust. So you make sure that the assets that you have are titled in the trust's name.
So what you're telling me is Barb and I went to an attorney and we had a trust created, right? Which is just merely a document. And the best way to think about it is thinking about owning a company, right? People die, companies don't, unless they go out of business, right? So we have this trust. And so now you're telling me Barb and I have put things into the trust by titling them into the trust.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. That's exactly how it goes down. And that technical verb is, you remember what it's called?
Funding.
Funding.
Yep.
Not funning. Funding with a D, right? You're putting the assets inside of it. So Barb and I have essentially put everything but what inside of our trust?
Everything but your IRAs.
IRAs and 401ks.
Yes. Right?
The tax deferred assets, in our opinion, tend to stay out. If you ever have an attorney that tells you that you can leave your IRA or your 401k to your trust, they are not technically inaccurate. The legal system says that you can do that. The problem is many of the custodians, the places where you may have your money, don't agree with that. And they read the trust at the end and they may not like something that's in it or say, and they can deem the next person fully taxable pretty much whenever they want to. So just take that as a word of caution. I have two separate trusts. I have a trust designed for nothing but my IRAs and 401ks. That says where it goes, so it's got the best tax treatment possible when I'm gone, and takes care of the kids. That's what we use for our families. And then the second part of it is we have the trust that has the rest of the assets that we have. Now, let's get into the trustee. So who is typically the trustee of a revocable trust?
So the trustee of a revocable trust is the person who creates the trust. So the person who creates it is called the grantor or the trustee when they're still living.
Typically, every now and then we'll have somebody who just doesn't want to mess with it anymore. I am when I say it's the Financial Enhancement Group. As the managing partner, I have the responsibility for that. But the Financial Enhancement Group is the trustee for a trust, right? And that can happen. And it's not irrevocable. He can still make changes if he wants to. He just doesn't want to deal with the day-to-day parts of the asset management and the money part that's taken place.
Sure.
So what's the successor trustee? How does that happen?
Yeah. So the successor trustee is the person that you set up in the trust to take over as the trustee when you become incapacitated or pass away and it becomes an irrevocable trust.
Huh. So now my kids, if I named my kids as the successor trustee, right? Now my kids who really didn't know a lot about my finances along the way, don't really have a lot of money on their own to manage, right? And now all of a sudden I'm going to put them in charge of everything I have?
Yes. Now they're in control if that's who you name as your successor.
How do you think the kids feel about that?
Probably pretty good.
No. See, this is that different age span again. When they come in, because that's my part of the gig. Most of them are terrified, right? You'll see people that are shell shocked that don't want to make changes, and it is a huge responsibility. You want to respect and honor the person that put you in that position, and at the same time, you want to be you are a fiduciary. You have the same liability as I do. Right, with the money that we manage, about making the right financial decisions. And so it's happened twice, in the last 2 or 3 years, where I've taken care of one family for over 20 years, and they had the responsibility for a family member that didn't have any kids. Right, they were the beneficiary. They were the remainder beneficiary, so they got all of the money. And for the last 5 years of her life, they looked at her returns and their returns and what we did versus what she was getting, and still could not get themselves to move the money until about a year after she passed away, just because of that fear. But in this case, that gentleman did his own tax return, did her tax return, did the investments, has worked with us for 20 years, knew what was going on. The majority of time when I see successor trustees given roles and responsibilities, they're not given a rule book.
Right.
Nobody explains to them what the obligation really, really is, right? So at the Financial Enhancement Group, what I did with the pandemic, with 2020, was petition to make the Financial Enhancement Group a corporate trustee. And in most of the cases, we're listed as successor trustees, right? But I split the duties up between the kids and me. And essentially, here's the deal. There are things that we can do at the Financial Enhancement Group as trustees, what I call the family fiduciary, making the financial decisions, determining distributions, making the investments, doing those kind of things. But there's things that I cannot do, right? I cannot be the one responsible for end of life issues, or I cannot be responsible, or FEG cannot be responsible for, the getting rid of your, the basic stuff inside of your life. Now there are things that I can do, but I have to hire out. And when I say that, the Financial Enhancement Group is developing a list, and if you're one of those people that's a caregiver or something like that wants to be on our list, then you can give us a call or send something in on the website. Or if you know anybody that you've had in your life that's really done a good job at that, I'm still developing that list to be able to have people vetted to be able to help with that. I've got a lot of families that I take care of that are either widowed or widowers, or they have zero heirs. I mean, literally, there are no nieces, nephews, kids, parents, brothers, sisters. So it's all charitable, but they still need a trust to be able to take care of them while they're here, right? And that's really why I built the trust division at the Financial Enhancement Group, so that we were prepared for that. we make a commitment at FEG to take care of you on your financial journey, your 20 plus years of retirement, typically when you separate from the workforce. And I feel bad as a human when I've taken care of you for, in many cases, more than 2 decades, right? And all of a sudden, you really need help in ways that I had no legal ability to help you. Because when you can't make your decisions, you can't decide to hire the fiduciary. And so we've worked hard with a couple law firms and friends that are out there to develop this trust division at the Financial Enhancement Group. The fiduciary part, your kids are named as, if you will, as the life event people, right? They're the ones that take care of the touchy-feely stuff, the stuff that has to happen, but you've got somebody that is trained to be able to be there from the asset management, the distribution side, and to be able to help them with questions that they have, since they don't have a rule book.
Mm-hmm.
They've never ever done this before, right? So did I miss anything, Jamie? Is there anything we need to hit inside of that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we got it.
All right. So key thing, you need an estate planning and documents, right? You need to have those done. You need to know whether you're going to use a will or whether you're going to use a trust. Now, I have both. I have a pour over will, P-O-U-R, that says anything I forgot to put in my trust, please do, right? You need to have those healthcare directives. You need to work with an attorney to get this done. In my opinion, it's do not try to do nickel and dime this thing with something on the internet, right? But get that put together. But when you think about who that trustee and who the successor trustees need to be and when they need to be, I think you really need to rethink who it is you've listed and what you expect them to do, and make sure that they understand what their expectation is. You're not going to know when you faded away. You're not going to know when you're making bad decisions by definition, right? You need somebody that has the capacity to be able to help you with that understanding and move you in that next direction based on what's going on. So go to yourlifeafterwork.com, get signed up for a next steps meeting. I'm happy to sit down with you and your estate planning attorney and have this conversation to figure out the best way to help you protect you while you're still here and to pass the torch when you're gone. yourlifeafterwork.com.